In 70 AD, the Great Jewish Revolt would culminate in a dramatic slaughter as Rome besieged and conquered Jerusalem and other Jewish strongholds in the area. Over 1 million people would perish, and thousands more would be enslaved. The temple and most of Jerusalem was reduced to rubble by the Roman soldiers. This event was foretold by Jesus, as recorded in the New Testament. But what events led to this rebellion and utter devastation? Welcome to the final episode in our series on the Malachi to Matthew gap. In the 1st century BC, the Roman world was starting to unravel, from a Senate-ruled republic to a dictator-ruled empire. Around 60 BC, power was divided among the first triumvirate of Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. Pompey had brought Judea under Roman control after a succession dispute among the Hasmoneans. He besieged Jerusalem and entered the innermost part of the temple, called the Holy of Holies. He then appointed Antipater as governor of the area, and left one of the Hasmoneans as high priest. 9 years later, Crassus would loot the temple not long before he and his armies were massacred by the Parthian Empire. From 49 to 45 BC, Caesar and Pompey would be locked in civil war, ending with Pompey's death in Egypt. Antipater had initially allied himself with Pompey, but would demonstrate his loyalty to Caesar by coming to his aid in Alexandria. Caesar would be assassinated in 44 BC, sending Rome into yet more internal strife and civil war. About the same time, Antipater suffered death by poisoning, and the Parthians attacked Judea from the north. Antipater's son Herod fled to Rome, while Octavian, later known as Caesar Augustus, and Mark Antony were continuing the ongoing civil war with Caesar's assassins. By 37 BC, 6 years before Augustus became emperor, the Roman Senate would proclaim Herod as King of the Jews and supplied him with an army to defeat the Parthians. Upon Herod's return, he would commission the temple to be rebuilt, as well as other works like the fortress of Antonia, built just north of the temple in honor of Mark Antony. Despite his work to rebuild the temple, most Israelites didn't view Herod as their king. He was not a descendant of David, and he killed members of his own family to maintain power. Then, as recorded in Matthew, Jesus was born near the end of Herod's reign. The order to kill all of the babies of Bethlehem would be one of Herod's final acts, but it did send Joseph and Mary to Egypt for a time to fulfill prophecy. Upon Herod's death, his kingdom would be divided between his surviving children. Archelaus ruled Judea, and Herod Antipas, known as the Tetrarch, ruled Galilee. When Jesus' family returned, Joseph apparently felt safer under the rule of the Tetrarch, so he went north to Nazareth. Meanwhile, power in Rome passed from Augustus to Tiberius in 14 AD, and Tiberius would be emperor throughout Jesus' adult life. A few years before Jesus' ministry began, Pontius Pilate was appointed governor of Judea. The Gospels infer that Pilate wasn't keen on crucifying Jesus, but either feared inciting the Jewish people to rebellion, or perhaps lacked the political power to save an innocent man from death. After Jesus' death and resurrection, tensions between Rome and the Jews deteriorated further. In 54 AD, Nero became emperor, and 12 years into his reign, there were protests and attacks on Roman citizens by Jews, combined with retaliatory attacks taken by Roman authorities. The rebels, who were comprised of the various Jewish factions of the day, ambushed and massacred a Roman army and set up a provincial government to defy Rome. But the rebels were only united in their opposition to Rome. They constantly fought against each other, and their internal disputations would be their doom. Roman General Vespasian was then tasked with putting down the rebellion, and succeeded in driving out the rebel forces until 68 AD, when Nero committed suicide and gave Rome a succession crisis. By the end of the next year, Vespasian was elevated to emperor, and his son Titus was appointed to continue suppressing the Jewish revolt. The siege of Jerusalem would be nothing short of an epic tragedy, with famine, cannibalism, and destruction on a massive scale. The rebels fought for every inch of the city, but it only fueled the Romans' determination to prevail. In a few weeks, the walls would be torn down, and the temple would be engulfed in flames, to the horror of all those who looked to it as the symbol of divine favor. Survivors would be sold into slavery and scattered across the world. The prophecies of Jerusalem's destruction in Matthew 24 would all come to pass, and surely the other prophecies are still being fulfilled now until the coming of the Lord in glory. Like the Israelites of Jesus' day, we have a choice to make. We can choose life, peace, and mercy through the grace of Jesus Christ, or we can choose to be rebellious, contentious, and myopic, thereby suffering deathly consequences, both physical and spiritual. We can be part of the gathering of Israel to the fold of God, or we can be part of the deteriorating world that will only lead to bondage and death. Jesus overcame the world, and he invites us to do so too, that we may be a people prepared to welcome him when he comes again. This concludes our series on the Malachi to Matthew gap. We hope you have gained a deeper understanding of the events that set the stage for the New Testament, and that you have an increased desire to follow Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Thank you for watching.